Okay, can you all hear me? It's a wonderful evening, and we'll try this again. Welcome back. As I was already sharing with you, my name is Marnus, and I will be your host tonight, and I'm very pleased to do so. Um, Later in this evening, we will be tackling a question. Uh, Now, we have been doing this for the past week, and we have been tackling deeper type of questions. And also tonight, we would like to do so. This time, we will be asking ourselves the question, isn't Christianity restrictive? But before we get into the deep stuff, I would like to share some few details. Now, we are starting a conversation. A conversation means that there's interaction. We are going to speak, and we would like some questions or comments from you guys as well. And in the comment section, you can find a link to Slido. That's a platform where you can ask questions or comment on what you are hearing. So let us know what you guys are thinking or what you guys want to ask. And on the end of tonight, we will have an opportunity to go into a Q&A where we will be sharing and answering some of those questions. And there's one more thing that I would like to point out, but in order to do so, I would need to speak in Dutch. So here we go. Als jullie vertaling nodig hebben van Engels naar het Nederlands, dat is mogelijk. Daarvoor kunnen jullie ook contact opnemen met ons of gewoon een comment laten in de chat zetten, zodat wij ook jullie kunnen contacteren om dit ook waar te kunnen maken. Okay, perfect. Let's get into things. Today, as I said, we are going to be asking ourselves the question, isn't Christianity restrictive? And we will be listening to a remarkable story of our first speaker of the night, Shane Taylor, and I would like Louise to help us introduce Shane to us.
Hello, and I am here from not so sunny Leuven. I think the sun has forgotten to come here, but I'm so delighted to be joined tonight by Shane, who I first heard speak at an event quite similar to this one, except for the fact, I'd like to cast your minds back. You might remember the days where we could all sit in the same room and eat lunch together and enjoy each other's company. It was a bit like that a few years ago where I first heard Shane's amazing story. So I want to start with some trivia questions to get our minds going. So Shane, very important first question I have for you. Would you rather cry glitter or sneeze glue?
Cry glitter.
Ah, that was my answer. Okay, and then just to throw everyone's head into a little bit of a spin, I just want you to imagine what life would be like if both happened.
If it happened.
So, with that idea in your head, Shane, this is an events week which has students coming from both Belgium and the Netherlands. And I just wondered, what is your favourite thing about Belgium or the Netherlands? So it might be stroopwafels, which are amazing. It might be Belgian beer. It might be
I'll say beer, yeah.
Beer, great, yes. Represent Belgium. Cool. So, Shane, for people who don't know you, they might have noticed that you have a little bit of a regional accent from the UK. So whereabouts in the UK are you from?
I'm from the northeast of England, near a place called Newcastle.
Perfect. Great city. Come on, the north. And you have a story which we've kind of been advertising all week, so people already know that something really huge happened to you quite a few years back now. But tell us about your life before that happened? What did life look like in the world of Shane before that?
What am I meant to be starting the beginning of my testimony here? Or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, life. I just remember when I remember as a kid, I had carrot ginger hair, freckles all over, and got picked on a lot at school. Bullied, felt like the odd one out. Just never fitted in, and always got picked on, called names, and obviously didn't realise the effect that would have on me as a young kid until I get older. It affected me as in like I struggled socialising with people, and I just didn't fit in. I just couldn't get in with people and fit in, and it sort of led to me starting to go and hang around with all the local criminals, all the young, joyriders and people who would steal cars and burgle houses and just be thieves, really. And we'd steal anything we could. And the police call it opportunist thieves. You don't go out to specifically do one thing. You just go out and you just hunting the streets, and whatever you come across, you rather burgle, steal, rob, and that's what we did as a young kid. And when I'm talking about a young kid here, I'm talking about I was that young. I can't even remember exactly when, but all I remember being about 8, 9 year old when I'm talking about this. And we would just roam the streets and just pinch cars and take car chases by the police, and we thought it was fun at the time.
Yeah,
because
very young though.
Oh, very young, yeah. Young enough not even to realise that what I was doing was wrong. That sounds mad, doesn't it? Because to some people, they'll think, well, everybody knows you steal. When you steal, it's wrong, but not when you steal them from a child and everyone around you is doing the same thing. You grow up not realising that it is wrong. And obviously, as I got a little bit older, I started to realise it was wrong. But by then, my life was into that anyway. And so, yeah, that was my life as a young kid, stealing, burgling houses and pinching cars. But I remember as a kid having an uncle who wasn't the hardest man around, but he was always fighting, and he had a reputation for fighting. And to me, he was like a god. And I looked up to him like he was like a father figure to me, and I loved him. If I was with him, I would stick my chest out and walk down the street, because I was with him. And yeah, he was like a father figure and a god to me at the time, and I'd always hear him fighting, but I'd still get picked on a bit, carry on burgling and getting in that route. But I remember always thinking, I want to be like that. And not only do I want to be like that, I want people to fear me. I want people to fear me more than him. And I don't know where that stemmed from. I don't know whether it was because I never fitted in, or because I was always getting picked on and just what I had this desire not to be. I don't know where it come from, but all I know is that that was my desire, that one day no one's going to pick on me again. No one's going to bully me again. And this led to me going down a totally different route. And when it all really started to change for me was when I had my first fight. And there was a lad, and I had my first fight with him. And I remember getting a bit of attention, like how before I was telling you I didn't fit in, I didn't get attention, I didn't get any of that. But when I had this first fight, I remember getting attention. And I remember thinking, oh, I like this. This is what I want. And from then on, it was a slow, throughout the years, process of becoming what we call criminals, like over years, criminals as game. Meaning you're up for a fight, you'll never back down. We call it being game. And I became game and just would fight and wouldn't back down. I started to feel like if I back down, then I'm an idiot and I'm a laughing stock. And this led to me just basically fighting, like doing daft things, getting more gamer, never backing down from people. And then eventually what I didn't count on was I started to suffer with mental health in a big way. Like I would watch gangster films. And when there was parts on the gang, there's one film I remember, I'll never forget it. It was a film called Goodfellas. And there's a part in the movie where the man that tried to kill a man, he's in the back of the boot, But when they're driving with him in the boot, he's still alive, and he starts banging. So they pull up and they open the boot, and then he starts stabbing them and shooting them in the back of the boot. And I remember my hair standing on end, getting a rush, and just, yeah. And I would play that scene. Obviously, this is clearly mental health. I started playing that scene over and over and over and over again, and start to feel like, yeah, I'm going to kill people. I want people to fear me. And so that movie, as well as everything else, had a little impact on me. And then I just sort of went from there. And I started carrying, when you get the kitchen knives, the sets,
Yeah.
you have the big one to the smallest one. And I would have the full set around my waist.
Wow.
And I would walk the streets and just would go mad. And it led to me once going into a town called Hartlepool in the northeast of England. And I come across another lad who was meant to be a nutcase. And to cut a long story short, really, we come to blows in the middle of the town centre, in the middle of the road. We stopped the buses, everything, and we all started scrapping in the middle of the town centre. At this point, he pulled out we call them mash hammers, the square ones for pavement slabs, and you can get the long handle ones and the short handle ones. He had a short handle one. He pulled that out of his waist or wherever, and as I was running towards him, he smashed me across the top of my head, and I pulled out a 9-inch kitchen blade. And as he hit me across the head, I stabbed him in the top of the head, and it come out of the front of his head here. I was then on the run for attempted murder. So while I was on the run for attempted murder, obviously I couldn't get a job, but at that time I'd never had a job anyway. But I needed money, and so I resorted to what we call taxing. It's where you go to the local drug dealers and take the money and drugs off them. So I went down a little route and did that to a few people. And then I come across another lad who got told a lie. And again, he wasn't the hardest man around, but he was well known at the time. And I remember walking into a club, and I was selling ecstasy tablets at the time, we call them. And I walked in the club, and someone had spread a rumour so that it would get all these involved. And when I walked in the pub to give my friend some drugs, he pulled me aside, this man, and he sat me down in the club. And I went to explain myself to him, but I remember looking to the side, and the whole club was just totally silent. It all come to a pause. Everyone was just stopped, and we're all looking at us. Now, remember, I've got a reputation now for stabbing people and being a bit of a nutter and all that. So I just remember thinking to myself, wait there a minute. He's pulled me up here. Now, if I don't do anything to him, it's going to look like he's pulled me up and I've backed down.
Sure.
And I made a choice in my head there that I had to make an example of him so that everybody knew that you don't pull me up. And as I'm thinking this, he said the wrong thing to me. He said, you want to mess about with the big boys, do you? And something snapped. And I put my face towards his face. I said, no. I said, you're messing about with the big boys. I said, get outside, I'm going to kill you. And I got up and I went outside and I waited. It was like a pub with steps. The door was at the top of the steps coming out. And I waited on the top of the steps, got my knife ready and waited for the door to open. And he never come out. So I went back in to see where you're at. And there was a load of lads stood in front of him, telling him, do not go out there. He means what he says. He's the real deal. He's if you go out there, he's going to try and kill you. And he was like, move, get out the way. You know, I'm going to deal with him. He come out the door. As the door opened, I got the 9-inch knife and just turned and stuck it straight through his chest. It went straight through to the other side, pulled it out. I remember a sound, like a sound, and then he just slumped to the floor. And then when he slumped to the floor, I jumped back, 2 lads jumped off the steps who were near him. They pulled out knives, and it was a standoff. So every time I'm trying to stab him, the one on this side's coming to try and stab me. And then I'm turning to him. When I'm turning to him, he's trying to stab me. So it was like in the middle. And then I remember thinking, right, if I pretend to go to him and I'll turn as he's coming forward and I'll get him. And I did that and I just missed him. And the lad went, he made business in. And they both walked off. I'm now on the run for 2 attempted murders.
Yeah.
And I just went on a rampage then. I knew I was getting a big sentence. So I decided to go and just run about, and I was built people's doors in. I remember going into booting the door in, and the family all barricaded themselves upstairs, the kids and that. And with me having kids now, that affects me a lot. Now I've changed and I'm not thinking the same. Just the fact that to put kids through that experience like affects you sometimes. But I remember, I just remember, just going down that road, and it was just one of many incidents I could, carry on going on, but I'd be here all night. So I'm trying to just bring out some big points of the story.
But like huge moments of like life pre-prison. So obviously at some point the police caught up with you and you did end up going to prison. And the reason I want to highlight this bit, I guess, is because our theme of the night is about restriction, about times in your life where you're most restricted. And actually, if you want to join in the conversation, those of you at home, there's a question over on Slido which says, when in your life have you felt most restricted? And I'm not going to lie, when I think about restriction, prison is a place where I think of as probably one of the most restricted things that you can be. So would you say that was your experience? And what happened once you were in prison? What did life look like then?
Prison made me worse. I just couldn't, sometimes I couldn't handle the way they were sometimes, because they've got authority and they'll push the weight around, and we run this place, and it becomes some, not all, there's a bit of trying to intimidate and bully people, and I wasn't having it. And I remember, so I went to prison, and I was just rebellious from the very beginning, because I went to prison anti-authority. I hated the system. And you've got to remember, when you're a criminal, you always blame everybody else but yourself. And I know this sounds crazy, but the one who rang the police on you, the grass, we'd say, the informant, it's his fault because he put me in prison. When really it's your fault because you commit the crime, but you don't look at it like that. It's a prison officer's fault because he locks the door behind you. It's the police officer's fault because he arrested you. Never you, it's always everybody else. So I went in there with that mentality. And I went into the prison, rebellious as, thought I'm going to get a bigger name for myself, never going to back down from anyone, and just went absolutely ruthless, running in inmate cells, beating them up, not taking over, but, becoming a bit of a face, getting involved in muscling in on drugs, selling and everything like that. And then eventually it sort of stemmed to a prison officer. And at the time, I was a big lad. I was trained every day. I was all, I loved my gym because I had a mindset to be physically strong and physically fit at all times, because I had a fear of losing in a fight at the time. And so I always had to be prepared. So I loved my gym, and they knew that. And one day, because on the wing, you have to press, in this jail anyway, you had to press the buzzer that'd come to the end of the wing and they'd shout, "Gym." So you'd press your buzzer and they'd come and let everyone out who pressed the buzzer, but they weren't letting me out. And so I pressed the buzzer when the officer come, and I said, "Oh, can you let me out for the gym?" He said, "I'll make sure next time we'll let you out for the gym." Next time he didn't even come on the landing, and he left me out. So I banged my cell door when I saw him coming on the wing, pressed my buzzer, started shouting to get him to come to the door. I said, "Why didn't you let me go to the gym?" And he was winding me up. And I said, "You know what?" I said, "I'm going to kill you." I said, "I'm going to get you." And he said, "Whatever, I've heard it all before." And you know what he has? You'll get inmates mad, they'll fret, but they don't follow through. The problem is, he had what criminals call the real deal in front of him. And I was one of them who, if I said something, I felt I had to follow through, because if I didn't, then I'm not real. And I had to prove myself. So when I told him I was going to kill him, I instantly set a plan. And we went out an association to where all the inmates have a couple of hours to go out and play a pool on the wing, go in the shower, do whatever they do, and whatever. I went out there with a coffee jar, big, massive glass ones, about that big. I wrapped it in a towel as if I was going to the shower, walked onto the association. And on the end of the wings, where the gates are, the prison guards stand near the gates. So if any riot's kicked off, they can get off the wing, but lock the wing off and keep everyone on the wing. So I knew this. So I got 2 inmates to go over to the officers and talk to them. And I said, when it kicks off, just stand in front of the gates so the officer can't get off the wing. And he had no, so that's what they did. They went over, they were having a laugh with the officer, chatting away with them, making them believe that they're just in a normal conversation. While he did that, I went up to someone who was playing pool. I said, start chucking pool balls at that prison officer there. He said, no, I don't want to. I said, just do it. And so I feel sorry a bit for him because he was more a little intimidated into doing it, the other lad. And so he did. I said, I'll deal with the rest. So he started chucking pool balls at the prison guard. The prison guard got up to go up the wing. The inmate stood in front of the gate. He pulled his bat on, ran towards the inmate who was chucking the pool balls. And when he did that, I ran over, smashed the bottom of the glass off, ran over to the officer and stabbed him. Started slashing him and stabbing him. Another prison guard come and he got stabbed or slashed as well. And this instantly makes you a very dangerous prisoner. I was then segregated off and moved to the top security prisons. I was moved to Franklin and sort of went and had my own little war with the system, if you want to call it that, battling them every day. And it led to me being put on what they call CSC, and it's close supervision circuit. And it's where, it's, put it this way, just to give you an understanding of what this is. You're in a maximum security prison, what holds the most dangerous criminals. They segregate you off from them because they say you're too dangerous for them. And then they segregate you off from the segregation. There is no physical contact. If your cell door is open, there has to be 6 to 7 prison officers in riot gear. If they feed you, there's like a little hatch on the bottom where they will attach like a metal box with a lock on. The lock will be opened, your food will be put in. They'll lock that side and then unlock the other side for you to put your hand in to get your food. And even then, I would still battle and battle and battle it. Fight the system out. I lost all hope in the sense of I don't remember losing it. I don't remember losing fear. All I remember is I came to a point in my life where it was just darkness, that if anyone died in my family, I wouldn't have shed a tear. It was just no emotions, angry, hated the system, hated the world, and just was living in this mask of just fight back, and it was just a tit for tat brutality, battle back, and it was just going on like that for a long time. Just made me hate the system 20 times more, even to the point of where I had one thing on my mind, is when I get out of prison, I want to find where these officers live, and I'm going to come and kill them, and I'm going to get every one of them back, and that would keep me going in my head. It would keep me sane, just remembering that one day I'm going to get out and I can come and get them back. And then I would be moved from prison to prison, prison to prison, prison to prison.
Yeah.
Until eventually gave me a little chance, put me in Parkhurst, in the Isle of Wight, started getting involved in drugs. And that's when I met this first little encounter with a Christian. He's called Robert or Ronald Bull. He was an older man, he was in for murder. And he came to me and he said, started preaching Jesus to me. And I thought, what an absolute plonker you are. Keep away from me. And I remember him coming to me all the time and preaching Jesus, and I would get mad at him and say, listen, mate, let me tell you something. I says, unless God appears to me now like you physically, I'll never believe in him, so you might as well go turn around and walk away. And he would just keep coming every now and then. And he'd little leaflets, why Jesus leaflets, come flying through the door. And I'd pick them up and flick through them. And, you know, I'm guessing something went in there, but I didn't know at the time. And then he said something to me. And it wasn't because I understood him. It was because I didn't understand him. What made my ears pring up. And for the first time, I actually took note of what he was saying. And he said to me, I've been in prison for years and years. Probably he's never going to get out again. And he pointed at his chest and he said, but I'm free.
Wow.
And my logic at that point, you're in prison for the rest of your life. You're never getting out again. How are you free? But it puzzled me and it sat on me. And I would sit there and go in my cell and think, what does he mean? How can he be free? He's in prison. And it bothered me. What does he mean? Anyway, so that was my first encounter of what's he on about. Then the prison guards came, I kept going on and getting involved in drugs and doing things on the wing. I tried to put a hit on a prison officer with some bags of heroin. And when I did that, the prison got onto it. The lad informed on me, and I was dragged to the segregation unit by loads of officers. Went to the segregation unit, and I got an image of this in my cell. Crazy this, but an image of this Christian in my head with this urge telling me to write him a letter. So I just thought, oh, I'll write him a letter. So I wrote him a little letter. I don't know why. I said, I've got this image in my head of you, an urge to write you. How are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. What's going on the wing? Oh, 3 or 4 days after, I get a 10 pages full.
Oh my gosh.
A4, both sides of a gospel. Jesus will set you free. Let go of your heart. It was God directing me. I just thought, he's lost it. And, you know, at the time, I thought he was crazy, even though I was the one who was crazy. Then I got moved back to a top security prison. In that prison, I thought, sack it. They've dragged me back to the seg. I went on a dirty protest and started fighting the system again.
Yeah.
He moved me back to a top security prison in Long Lartin. I think, is it Full Sutton or Long Lartin? It's in Worcestershire. And I was in there a couple of weeks and they opened my cell door. When they opened my cell door, he said, go to the chaplains, go to the education department. So I got to the education department and they said, your name's not on the list. You're going to have to go back to the wing. And I made a fuss and they let me through. But can I just go back a little bit? You know, we talk about coincidences, but let's look at this. They opened my cell door and sent me to the education department. My name wasn't on the list. Why did they open my door? Secondly, when I got there, if your name's not on the list on movements, they've got to send you back to the wing. You're in a top security prison. If you escaped or you killed someone and you weren't where you were, how did you get there? Why did they let you through? They could get sacked.
Yeah.
Right? But they sent us. I was making a fuss saying, well, I've been sent down here, blah, blah, blah. And they sent, one of the officers stepped back and he went, go to the chaplaincy. So I was just buzzing because I didn't have to go back to my cell.
So can I just pause you for a second, Shane, because chaplaincy might not be a word that people know. So chaplaincy is like the place where people will go if they are religious, usually, or to seek counselling. And so it's a place usually of spiritual faith within a prison.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Shall I carry on?
Yeah, just aware that some of the words people might not know.
Yeah, and so I went to in the chaplaincy in the prison where like the faiths are and stuff like that. And I went in, and I remember walking in, but when I walked in, there was like a circle of lads around this TV with a grey-haired guy, really posh. Hello, you know, a really posh Londoner on there. And I remember sitting down, and I'm watching it a bit, and I just remember getting this sense of thinking, oh no, it's one of them Christian things. So I'm thinking in my head, right, when the video goes, because you know when you sat there and there's a load of people there and the video, you know, you think, oh, I'll wait the video stop, then I'll go. Yeah. Anyway, the video stopped, all the Jesus preaching and everything. And then And the course, because what I walked into at the time, I didn't know, but it was called an Alpha course. And it's the basics of Christianity, basically. And you go in there and you're allowed to express your own views, and you get food, you know. It was great. But I remember going in, sat down, and I thought, oh no, it's a Christian thing. And I thought, when the video goes, I'll go. And the Christian lady, as soon as the video had finished, she said, oh, are you meant to be here? I said, well, I don't know, I don't think so. So she checked, she said, your name's not on the list. So I said, oh, I'll go then. And she said, oh, okay. And then when I went to go, one of the lads said to me, oh, you get chocolate gatos and biscuits and that. I went, miss, can you put my name down, please? and no intention of God, I started going because you got chocolate cakes, biscuits, and you got Nescafe coffee, which is big improvement.
Which for all Belgians is a massive insult, but it's nice.
And I just remember, and that's what got me on the course. So I was going on the course every week. But there's one thing I remember is I got puzzled because I always heard a religious side to the Christian faith, which is, you know, you've got to be perfect and they're all like angels, and if you're bad, then you just go into hell. And for the first time, I started to hear a message of it doesn't matter what you've done, as long as you repent and give your life to Jesus, you can be forgiven. And I couldn't get that. It wouldn't register to me. And I was just thinking, well, how do I thought you had to be like an angel to go to heaven? And so it was sort of like, for the first time, I started hearing things like, no one's righteous, not one. We all fall short of the glory of God. I started to hear things like Jesus died for sinners and stuff like that. So I'm on this and questioning and wanting an argument, but no one would argue with me, and which I didn't like. Everyone, I could have called them anything, and they would have just said, "Oh, we respect your opinion." I was like, I'm not used to this, you know, an argument. But in the end, there's a Holy Spirit Day, what they dedicate to the Holy Spirit, which normally gets me upset when I get to this point, when I'm feeling starting to get me upset anyway now. But I remember going on, and there's a Holy Spirit Day, and we went on the Holy Spirit Day, and there was I found the pastor who went, they prayed for us, on the Alpha, everything was happening, and I saw people crying and stuff like that, and at the time nothing happened to me, and I remember thinking, see, it's rubbish, all a load of rubbish. And so what happened is the pastor come to me and he said, I was making a cup of coffee, Eddie Baker he is, and he come to me and he said, I've never done this in all the years I've worked here, but God is telling me to tell you to come here this afternoon on your own. And so I said, yeah, okay then. So the afternoon came, and I went there, found the pastor, and he got two chairs and sat them in front of each other. And he said, right, I'm going to say some verses out the Bible. And one of them was, no one is righteous, not one. We all fall short of the glory of God. And the other one after that was about Jesus dying on the cross. And I can't remember exactly which scripture, but it was definitely about Jesus dying on the cross for our sins and stuff. And then he just said, he said a prayer, and he said, pray. And I said, well, how do you pray? What do you do? And he said, from your heart, just pray. And I just remember saying, God, please, I don't even know why I said this, because I wasn't searching for God, please, I hate who I've become. If you're real, do something. Show me you're real. Come into my life. I hate who I am. I hate who I've become. If you're real, show me. And nothing happened at the time. And then we'd stop praying. And then after we'd stopped praying, I started to feel like an energy feeling going on in my stomach. And it shot up sorry. It always gets me, because it was the start of changing my whole life. It's been 10 years. I always say this exact same thing, but it's been 10 years, and I'm still at this point. It still gets me because it was the beginning of the change of everything in my life. It changed everything. I knew that God was real at that point. And it was a feeling of, like two emotions I got. And one is realizing all your life how wrong you've been. And then that hitting you, the sins and everything you've done to people that hurt. And then the other one was like a joy feeling. Like I finally knew this God everyone was talking about was actually real. It's not nutcases in sandals with beards walking around with boards on. It was, hello, I'm Christian, knocking on your door. This was for real for me, and I finally knew for myself that God was real, and I couldn't believe it. And I ran. Actually, I remember the first thing I said to the pastor when this happened to me. I sobbed like a baby, absolutely sobbed. I couldn't stop. And to make it worse, at the time, all inmates were looking through the door and looking in to see what was happening. So I'm trying to, not cry, but it was, I can't explain what happened. It just totally changed my life. And I remember running on the wing with a Bible in my hand. This is funny. But I ran on the wing with a Bible in my hand. And when I ran on the wing, prison officers in top security prisons tend to stand in groups in case they get attacked. So when movements are on and you're going from one place to the next, they'll be in 2s and 3s or 4s. And I remember running up to them and I've jumped in front of them and I went, "It's real," and they've all jumped back into a fighting stance. I went, "It's real." And they're all like looking at each other and I was going, "It's real." And one of them finally went, "What's real?" I went, "Jesus Christ, he's really real." And they all just split up and walked off. And then I ran in my mate's cell. He was eating his dinner and I ran in and said, "I've just been crying. Jesus Christ just came into my life. He's real." And he just chucked me out and I've never seen him since. He just didn't want to know me after that. But I didn't care. And I was just running around the prison like an absolute loon. You make a mistake when you first become a Christian because you're very excited of what's just happened to you. You can overdo it and you can come across like a loon. And I was just absolutely crazy. I would just preach anyone who would listen. And I mean, like they could sit there and say peanut butter's nice, and by the end of that conversation, I'll be preaching Jesus loves you, and I was just on fire. And the reality is, I wish I was there again because I have lost that a bit to what I was when I first became a Christian. And and then it was just like I was in prison for about a year. The prison officers couldn't believe it. I actually remember the governor holding a meeting, and when I went in on the chaplaincy just come, the pastor just come and he said, the governor's held a meeting and he wants you to come. So I said, "Oh, okay." So I went to this meeting and it was a big long table. Number one governor was at the other end. There was the chaplain, there was the imams, there was all the different religious leaders were there. There was social services, the head of the prison guards, and they basically said, "Do you think they'll come back to prison?" And I think they wished they never asked me the question, because for about 15, 20 minutes, I was preaching that Jesus loves them all and they need to be saved, and I'll only come to prison if God allows me and stuff like that. And by the end of that, the number one governor said, "Does anybody have any more questions?" They all went, "No, you're all right." Put the heads down. And then I got released.
Wow.
And
just to say, we are a little bit over time. So I've just been blown away. I've heard this before and I'm still blown away. So I just want to say to anyone who has come tonight and kind of has somewhere to be, please still do send in your questions. Please contact us. Please come back to Facebook another time. We're going to carry on. we're going to listen to the very end now of Shane's story. My colleague Ollie has kind of a talk to share to kind of help you sum up and maybe process some of what Shane said tonight. But we will carry on. We will then answer some questions. It is going to be a bit later. So if you have to go, please do. And we will have a break in a moment. And do please come back to Facebook and watch this later. Because hopefully, I can see there's quite a few of you watching. You've also found this valuable. So yeah, Shane, you were saying you got released. So that's a massive turnaround in your life.
Yeah, so I was a year into my sentence, because obviously I was doing a big sentence at the time, and obviously I got extra time on top for the prison guards I stopped. And then I remember I got out, and I remember meeting my mum and my auntie, and I got in the car and I said to my mum, I'm never going back to prison. And I said, I love Jesus and all that, and she just went, whatever. And I said, I'm telling you, and it's now been 11 years. And anyway, I got out and I hit Holy Trinity Brompton, and the Alpha heard about me becoming a Christian, and they invited me down and started doing testimonies, and then I ended up working for caring for ex-offenders under Alpha with Paul Cowley. That was a great stuff. And then I ended up working for Alpha a little bit itself, doing Alpha courses in the prison. But here's the powerful thing for me. You would have thought that the last prison to have me was the prison where I stabbed the guards. But when I got out, I was out about a year, and the prison #1 governor gave the head prison guard of that prison permission to come to my house and have a cup of coffee. Wow. Came round, had a cup of coffee with me, and asked me if I'd like to go back into prison. Went in the prison, but after I'd been in once or twice, the prison officer got me in the office, and he picked the phone up and he rang somebody, and the door knocked a little bit after, and the door opened, and it wasn't one of the prison guards that I'd stabbed. And I remember just saying, look, I'm sorry for what I've done. I'm really sorry. You know, when you're apologetic and we're having a cup of coffee, and every now and then I'd go, I'm really sorry. And then near the end, I said it again. I said, look, I'm really sorry. I wasn't in the right frame of mind. And he looked at me and went, tell us about it. You know, so we had a little laugh over it as well. Yeah. And started doing an Alpha in there where a lot of me co-accused. So co-accused is where in my past life, I've been on sentences and been sent to prison on charges with them. So we've been in prison. One of them I was in prison for kidnapping with, where we both was alleged to have kidnapped someone and took them away in a car and stuff. And he was on the Alpha, doing the Alpha. And I remember when I first got out of prison, he was saying he would never do an Alpha and stuff like that. And I was just doing an Alpha for a lot. And then after a while, I'm not doing that at the minute. And then after a while, I was approached about asking if someone could write a story on my life. And so then someone came and published a book, and then a DVD documentary, which is really good for probably his outreach, to be truthful. But it's a documentary on my life and how God come into my life and stuff. And I'm not financially part of that either, by the way. The testimony's out there, and hopefully people can get saved off that. And and I'm married with 5 beautiful children who I love and adore. And God's just, don't get me wrong, I have to admit, it's not been an easy ride. And it's probably one of the hardest things I've done at times. But God is just 100% real. And I always express it in this way. And if this is real, if somebody put a gun to my head, and I know people think, yeah, whatever, if they did, you would just, someone put a gun to my head and said to me, say Jesus isn't real. And if you say he isn't real, I'll not shoot him. And he's going to have to shoot me. Because Jesus is so real to me, that would be impossible for me to deny him, even when it comes to being killed or anything like that. It's my only way in my life how I can express my desire that I know God, and I know how real he is. He's done all sorts, and even in my struggles, all he's done is brought my struggles and made me stronger. And yes, I don't want to go on and on about it, but I've preached.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, it's been so good to hear your story, and I think you're going to stick around a bit and maybe answer some questions at the end. But I think we'll pause there and maybe have a 2-minute break. I just want to say to anyone who is feeling maybe touched by that story right now, or maybe a bit overwhelmed, or maybe you've heard something that has made you feel something, whatever that thing is, please do chat to someone, chat to the person who invited you, chat to someone in your local movement, or if you don't know anyone, then send us a message. There are plenty of us on the team here who would love to help you process this. So now I think the tech team will just switch this back to a plain screen just for 2 minutes. Just give you a chance to process what you've heard, fill up your water or your beer, whatever it is you're drinking, grab a snack, and then we'll come back and Ollie will process for us what we can do to further think about this question. Thanks, guys.
Now, I don't know about yourself, but it was such a delight to hear the Shane story. I am so thrilled. It was such a good thing to listen to Shane's story. And hopefully we will hear a bit more later on. So if you have any questions, please, again, go to Slido and you can ask your questions. Now, I'm going to share my screen quickly. And I want to thank you with a question about, isn't Christianity restrictive? Now, Shane shared a lot of things already about being restricted by being imprisoned. Now, when you think of life now, we could say like we experience a lot of restriction as well, isn't it? You're probably fed up with the story or hearing it all over again about the virus that are directing our lives and hearing it all over and over again on the news and everywhere. Now, we are confronted today with a pandemic that actually day by day is having a massive impact on our daily lives. We face a lot of restrictions. Think about it. Think about that we can't go with anybody we like. We can't meet anybody that we like. I just need to figure out because there are some chats coming in. If my sound's not on, just give me the thumbs down, by the way, guys, but I'm probably on. So there are lots of things of restrictions that we actually experience today. Imagine we have to go outside, and when we take the public transport, we have to wear masks. We have to be indoors before 9 o'clock in the Netherlands at 12 o'clock in Belgium. We can't go to the pub. We can't go anywhere else. So we're facing a lot of restrictions. Now, I think most of us haven't faced that much of restrictions in our lives as we did last year. And we're longing for the life we had to give up before. We're longing for the life before the pandemic. But what comes to your mind when you think of being limited by restrictions? You might long, for example, to meet some friends and just give them a really good hug. Or maybe you long to go for a barbecue outside and having just some lovely pieces of meat to get outside in the good weather. Or what do you think of maybe of having a good celebration with hundreds of people at the same place, just dancing and loving the atmosphere? Or going on a holiday without concerning or the borders going to be closed or not? Or just for you as students going back to classes, because on the end, it wasn't that bad, wasn't it, to go to school? So maybe going back to school, is that what you long for? We all long to be freed from restrictions and experience freedom again. Now, a couple of days ago, I watched a Belgian documentary, which was about people being imprisoned for a lifetime. And one of the prisoners said, people only know what freedom is when they lose it. And I think there is something in there, isn't there? People only know what freedom is when they lose it. And maybe you can relate to what the prisoner says, because he is that experiencing every single day. Shane just shared the story, and he said as well that there were lots of restrictions. He couldn't even have physical contact with anybody else when he was in a high secure prison. But you know, I know somebody else who also know how it felt like to be restricted. And this person is Elsa from Frozen. Elsa from Frozen knows what it was like to be restricted, because she was restricted by the power to turn everything into ice. And she runs away. And when she runs away, she sings a song. And you might know the song, which is named Let It Go. But in the song Let It Go, she sings, it's funny how some distance makes everything seem small. And the fears that once controlled me can't get to me at all. It's time to see what I can do, to test the limits and break through. No right, no wrong, no rules for me, I'm free. And she sings, Let It Go. Now, breaking down for all restrictions, longing for freedom is a strong and deep desire that screams inside of us. And we all might want to be more like Elsa, screaming that we want to be free. We're all willing to live our whole lives to search and find that real freedom. Now, a couple of years ago, I watched a movie. And the movie was named Django Unchained. And I don't know if you watched the movie yourself, but in the movie, there was a beautiful song in there, which is named Freedom. And in this song, Freedom, we have the following line. I'm looking for freedom, and to find it, it costs me everything I have. I'm looking for freedom, and to find it costs me everything I have. So going to Christianity to get rid of restrictions sounds like the opposite, isn't it? It sounds like the opposite place to find freedom. Because quite often I hear from people, won't you be enslaved when we decide to listen to a God directing our lives? Well, it seems to be. There was an American actress, Mira Sorvino, and Mira Sorvino said this. Mira Sorvino said, when you're a Christian, your law is laid out for you in codified form, and you can have some kind of debate about this or that, but basically, you're supposed to accept God's will. There's no argument about whether it is a definitive right and wrong. And once you know this law, nobody else can be right unless they agree with you. And so you wind up with, you're wrong, you're mistaken, you're sinning, you are in error. And I find that extremely restrictive and impossible. Believing in the Christian God feels extremely restrictive and impossible, is what Mira Sorvino says. So why would you believe in him? But I have a question for you. Are we as free as we think we are? Now, I share a passion, probably with a lot of people behind this live stream. I share a passion, namely a passion for foods and drinks. I love food and drinks. I love my fries with steak. I love my pizza. I love my lasagna. I love my my spaghetti with garlic bread. And you know, I have the freedom to eat whatever I like. I have the freedom to drink whatever I like. But I don't need to tell you that at one point there will be somebody there to stop me, namely my doctor. My doctor will come to me and say, like, if you live this lifestyle over and over again, it will destroy you. You get bad health and even it can lead to death. So my body can't handle all these extras and my liver can't consume it all. So at one point somebody will stop me. Oh, it's also like this whale, you know? A whale has the entire ocean to swim freely in. He has all the freedom to swim wherever he likes. But from the moment he decides to leave the ocean and jump on the mainland, he will die. So is this whale as free as he thinks he is? When Elsa in the film Frozen sings about let it go, and she sings down, I'm free, let it go, then we still see that she's not as free as she sings it. She's still living in an isolation, in an ice castle that keeps her down. She's still limited by her condition where she turns everything into ice. So what about our personal freedom? Well, the Christian claim is that God himself became man in the person of Jesus. And Jesus said something about freedom. In the eyewitness account of John, we read the following thing, and it says, even as he spoke, many believed in him. The dispute over whose children Jesus' opponents are to the Jews who had believed him, Jesus said, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. They answered him, we are Abraham's descendants and have never been slaves of anyone. How can you say that we shall be set free? Jesus replied, very truly I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. Now a slave has no permanent place in the family, but the son belongs to it forever. So if the son sets you free, you will be free indeed. Now Jesus gives us a glimpse what real freedom looks like. He says, come to know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Like freedom is coming to know the truth. He says even more. Jesus says, like, we are enslaved to sin. Everyone who sins is enslaved to sin. Sin is that part that drags us down, that doesn't make us free. It becomes more clear when I look to myself. You know, personally, I have a strong feeling what feels right and what feels wrong. I know what feels good, but often it's easier to do the opposite. If I always did the right thing, then I keep myself out of trouble, but I need to be honest that I don't have to do much to get myself into trouble. It's not something I followed a course for, it's just something that happens. I don't need to train for that. And maybe that's something you can rely on. And we all know that we don't like to be in trouble, isn't it? But it's so easy to get ourselves into it. And when we look around us, that's the moment where rules are introduced. For example, I want to introduce this to this lovely girl. This lovely girl is actually my niece. And at my parents' place, we have a heater where you can see the flames. And when my niece was younger, it was really strange, but she was always really attracted to the flames. And she always had like that thing in her mind, I want to touch the flames. So she always stepped closer and closer to the heater to touch that little flame in there. And when she reached for it, my sister stepped in and punished her. Now, my sister is not like a restrictive mom, because she noticed that when my sister or my niece would touch the flames, that will harm her. She will get damaged by it. So freedom is something that can drag us down, and the choice of freedom has consequences and responsibilities. It's what the Austrian psychiatrist Sigmund Freud once said. The Austrian psychiatrist Sigmund Freud said, most people do not really want freedom because freedom assumes responsibility, and most people are afraid of that responsibility. Jesus himself speaks about freedom or sins that drags us down. Now, when we think of the word sin, then we always think of actions, things you can't do. You can't lie, you can't steal, doing wrong and bad things. But sin goes even a step further. Sin is an attitude, saying to God, I don't need you. I can do it myself. And Jesus says that this action and attitude enslaves us. But he doesn't want us to become slaves. He wants us to be free, living free lives, not being dragged down. Just as my sister stepped in when my niece wanted to touch the flames and don't want to get harmed, like don't want to damage her, and to want to see her flourish and grow, is there a God who wants to see us flourish and grow. Now Elsa from the film Frozen becomes free of an act of true love when her younger sister Anna gives herself in a self-sacrifice for Elsa. After the act of true love, she finds real freedom and she's released from a condition. Now, what if Jesus offers us real freedom? And what if he offers real freedom by an act of self-sacrifice on the cross, an act of true love? But it doesn't stop there. He didn't say death, he didn't stay death, but after 3 days, he returned and came back from the cold. Why would he do that? Well, he wants to set us free because of true love for us. And he knows that sin has consequences and responsibilities, and he's willing to take that responsibility on himself so that you would be set free. Now, what's the difference with Frozen? Well, I believe that the story of Jesus and what he did for us is a true historical event where you can look into. As we saw in the eyewitness account of John, we read, "So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed." Now, this God is a God that wants to set you free. No slavery to sin, no an action or attitude, but just offering you a true relationship based on love. Now, maybe you say for yourself, yes, maybe that's something I want for myself as well. And the great news is, this is for you. This is for us all. And you know what? It's free. This is free to offer. Just as this evening that we organize here is for you guys, it's free. You don't have to pay anything. The only thing we ask is just turn up. You just need to come. And Jesus says the same thing. He says, you just need to come and you just need to receive what I want to give you. Now, I'm really interested in what your response was going to be. And I think 3 responses are possible. The first response might be, yes, but no thanks. I do believe what Miro Servino said. Now, then my question would be, have you looked into it for yourself? If not, I really challenge you to look into one of those eyewitness accounts, read it for yourself. It just takes 2 hours, and at least you're better informed afterwards. Now, maybe you say to yourself, I have a lot of questions and struggles and doubts. And that's good. It's good to have questions. I'm a Christian now for 10 years. And over those 10 years, I still have my questions. And I figured out that I probably will have my questions until the last moment of until my last breath. But it's good to have questions because questions lead to investigation. Investigation leads to answers, but probably as well more questions. And it's good to find those questions. So please look into it for yourself. And maybe you say like, yes, this might be true. How do I receive this wonderful relationship? Well, the only thing you have to say is yes. Yes, I want this relationship. Just as Shane shared with us tonight, that he said a prayer, you can say this prayer as well for yourself and allow God to come into you, into your life. As well, if you say this prayer, we would love to stay in contact with you, and you can leave your contact details behind. So somebody from the local student movement can be in contact with you. But I'm really keen and really interested what your response is going to be on this offer that Jesus offers you. And now I would love to give my word back to Marinus, and Marinus, our host, will continue this evening with us.
Yes, thank you, Olivier. Thank you for sharing that with us and making us think about that as well. And like I said earlier as well, this is a conversation that we are starting, and this conversation needs interaction. And so we want to go over some questions that you guys have as well. So keep sending those in as well. But to be honest, that is our next thing on our schedule. So be quick, and also know that we might have a lot of questions and that we cannot go over all of the questions, but we will try and tackle as many as possible in the time that we have. Let me check what questions we have in already. All right, looks like we have a few here. Shane, is it all right if I start with a question for you?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. The question here I got is, what restrictions do you still experience? Do you now have things to fear? That's a tough one.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Life hasn't become like fairyland to me. It's not all nice and perfect, and in fact, sometimes I feel like it's become even harder. And sometimes the restrictions are in your behavior. And so when I had my experience with God, it changed the way I am, and it changed. So someone challenged me on the street. My restriction is I've got to walk away. And it's so hard when you've lived a lifestyle like me. It's probably the hardest thing to do is let someone make an idiot out of you, and you've got to bite your tongue and walk away. And so there's sometimes the struggles I have to face, but I know that it's been 11 years and I haven't responded to them struggles, but they're still there. I still have my natural reaction, my natural reactions, if you say, I still get angry, but I still struggle with things, but in a whole, I respond very, very differently. But it is a restriction, if you want to say that, because it's hard work, and it mentally can be hard, but I know God's real. I know what happened to me. And so I will always try my best to follow God's ways in that, but it's tough.
Indeed. Yeah, we are still human, indeed. And it's not something that we can escape. Sorry. Another question, maybe. Thank you for that answer, Shane. Let me check. I have another question. Maybe this one is for Olivier. Olivier, faith has a lot of rules. Why should you want that, and why should we need that?
Is this to me?
I think the question is for me. I'll have to tackle that one. It's a really good question, I would say. It's a really, really good one. Why should we bother about rules? Now, just join me in a thinking. Like when you look to the automobile, like the car. One of the first cars came out was the Ford's car, designed by Henry Ford. And when Henry Ford designed this car, he put a manual in there in the shelf where you can look into how to use the car in the best way possible, how it's designed. Because this car, it has a design, and there is somebody who made the design and said, like, this is the best way possible to handle it. And why won't you look into it? Now, I need to be honest. I know the manual is in there, but I don't use it. I just like to use it wherever I like and wherever it pleases me. But then you know that probably you would put a bit of harm to the construction actually made by Henry Ford. If you want to make it if you want to use it the best way possible, you have to look into the manual. And I think that's a bit similar with God. God is also the designer of mankind. He made human beings, and he says, like, I want to make you enjoy life in the best way possible. But then I want to give you some rules, a manual actually, how you can live your life in the best way possible, just as I created you. So I think that's the reason why that would be my reply actually to this question.
Yeah, it's very useful as well. Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Olivier. Let me check. Are there any other questions that we can still tackle? I don't know how many other questions we still can tackle because we are already over time. Maybe just one more. How about this one? Shane, I think this one is good for you as well. Sometimes restrictions or rules are better for you. So restrictions can also be positive, right? what is your opinion about that?
Well, a bit like it, on the answer is when you talk about laws and stuff like that, is if you think about there's rules, it stops people getting hurt. So if you want to see it in a crime, let's describe it as in crime. If there was no one needed to stick to the laws, then how many more murders would there be? How many more criminals would there be? How much ruthless would it be on the streets? And by having them rules and them laws helps everybody else. And so when you stick to rules, it stops people getting hurt. For example, in the Christian faith, it says to not steal. So it doesn't hurt other people or yourself when you don't steal. No one would rob. No, if we were to stick to the Bible like it said, it would be hard for people to be mad at people. No one would commit crimes against each other. There wouldn't be adultery. There wouldn't be unfaithfulness, and all this stuff affects everything around you and other people, and can have damaging effects for the rest of your life. And sticking by them rules, I find helps everybody and is a good thing. And the reason why the world's like it is today is because a lot of people don't want to stick to the rules. They don't want to stick to the laws. And then chaos happens, and the world becomes more violent, more worse. So think about it like that. Rules, if they weren't here to instruct us to do the right things, this world would be 10 times nastier and worse a place than it is today. That's the way I can answer it, I guess. So rules and laws, the reason why I was like I was, because I didn't like them and I didn't want to stick with them. And that's why I ended up a dangerous criminal and a prisoner. And sometimes you don't even have to be a dangerous prisoner or a dangerous prisoner or anything. You can hurt people by your attitude, by the way you are. You don't have to commit crimes. You can just be a nasty piece of work and an evil person by the way you are and the way you treat people. You don't have to be a criminal to be like that. Yeah. And by sticking to ways and rules, you end up with a better nature to yourself, a more humble person, a more forgiving person, and so all that kicks in, and it just, yeah. Anyway, I'll rabble on for hours if I was left, so I better shut up. But that's my answer to that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that answer as well. And thank you in general for this conversation that we started. Thank you, Olivier, as well, for your input. And thank you, your audience, as well, for asking these questions. And we've now started a conversation, and we would love to keep this journey going and keep searching for answers. So although we might not be able to do it in this time, in this stream, we would love to use Alpha as a tool for you to keep in touch. And if I'm right, then we have a video about that as well that we are about to share.
I've always had a lot of questions. Sometimes internalized, forgotten, sometimes very real and present. I moved to Brighton and got invited to a party. It was in a church. I imagined some crazy rave, but it was unlike anything I've ever been to. I met people from all walks of life. Some were Christians, some weren't. We all had questions. We all wanted to explore life. We're told to question and search, but how do we explore for ourselves? Society often tells us where to look. At Alpha, I discovered something authentic, real, and full of life. And now, I still have questions. Maybe even more so.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for sharing that video with us, Olivier. Yeah, the video is really just an introduction to what Alpha is like. And Alpha is something that we would like to start with you as well, where we students can come together and think about these type of questions. And we would love to do this with anyone, with any type of mindset or opinion. And so there are two ways in order to be able to join these conversations. One is through the feedback form that we have also in the comment section, where you can give us feedback about how this event has been going, in order that we can improve these type of events in the future. And at the same time, there's also the question for you if you want to attend this Alpha course or not. Also, if you already filled in the feedback form or anything, you're still able to contact us. Just text any one of us, and then we will, make sure that you are able to join these conversations. Now, I am about to close off this conversation with you tonight, but that doesn't mean that we are finished at all, because tomorrow we have another conversation, tomorrow night. And this time we have another speaker, Michael Otts, and he will be speaking about the question, can I be free in this life? Another deeper question that we will be tackling tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, make sure that you are joining, that you are ready, and please invite your friends, invite people to join this conversation. So yeah, thank you for listening tonight, and thank you for joining in. I hope you have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.